Hello everyone, Jonathan here with Excel Help Now, and welcome back to part 3 of the video series of how to create a sports betting tracker with dashboard. So part 1, we went over a bet log and how to track our bets appropriately, the right fields and data validation for this bet table. And then part 2, we created the sports betting dashboard summary table up at the top to look at total profit, total ROI, total bets, overall win percentage, and we inserted some slicers to be able to look at different metrics within those buckets. And so today we're going to expand on what we've done so far and actually look at some pivot charts to look at profit by different sports book, by different odd buckets, by sports, what percent of our bets we're putting on different sports, our average bet size. So a lot of really helpful information that I'm going to walk you through how to create pivot charts that are all going to be driven by our slicers so they can be interactive. You can see by month, by year, by sportsbook, by league, by type, whatever way you want to slice the data, it's going to be available. And I'll walk you through how to set this up. So with that said, let's flip over to where we stopped on video 2, that workbook, and then we'll keep building away. Okay, I have where I left off with video 2. So we have that sports betting dashboard. We have a bets and an inputs tab as well. And we have our slicers that are going to interact with our data. So that's all built out and as we want. Then I have our hex codes in here just as a reference to keep our charts and graphs looking nice and consistent. So the first thing we're going to do is just insert a new tab for our pivot charts. Just rename this to pivot charts. For that at the end just to keep it with our total pivot charts tab. And we can go ahead and go to that and grab a pivot table, just copy it, we can build off that, remove the grid lines. Let's go ahead and select this, pivot table analyze, and then do the field list so it pops up. And so what we're going to want to do is we're going to put the sports as the rows. And then instead of total profit, we're going to have wager. And we want to do that as a count. And then we want to do value field settings. We want to show this value as percent of grand total. So you can see, we want to see how many bets percentage wise we're placing on baseball, basketball, football, hockey, soccer, tennis, whatever sports that you're betting on. We want to have that split, and we can rename this to wager split percent. Okay, and then we can rename the table as well. Wager split. And then once we have our pivot table the way we want it, we can go up to Insert, Pivot Chart, Pivot Charts, and we are going to select the pie area. And then at the far right of that is the donut chart. Click OK. So we got our donut chart, and do Control X to remove it from this tab. And then we'll tab over to our dashboard, then Control V to copy it in. We have our donut chart now, and now it's just doing some formatting. We'll hide all the filled buttons on the chart. We can rename the title to percent of bets by sport. And the formatting is, I mean, you can make this however you want, whatever you think makes look good, whatever you think looks good. But it's just something that I've some things that I like to do. So move the title over a little bit, and then just select the area. And then the format chart area, you do the borders. I think this rounded corners really makes it look much better. And then we can update the width on it to be a little bit wider. And the blue gray, one of our recent colors, I think that just makes it look a lot better. And you can do a fill too if you want. You could do a solid fill, and we could do like a light gray just to make it stand out more from the background of the spreadsheet. So those are just some formatting things that you can do that I think make it just look a little bit more appealing and stand out. We have that, and then something else, you could select one of the donut values, and if you want to go over to the series options, and you could donut hole size, you could decrease that to make the hole in the center less pronounced. We could bring that down to like 60%. So the different pieces of the donut stand out a little bit better that way as well. So that's all just some formatting things. You could click our legend, do a Control B to bold it, maybe drag it over a little bit, increase the font if you want. This is just some aesthetic things that I like to do, but this is really up to you and not essential. But what is essential is getting your data pulled in there. So that looks pretty good. And then we'll go back to our pivot charts and we will insert. So the next thing we need to do is have that average bet size. So we can go ahead and just grab what we've already done for a pivot chart, um, go over a couple columns just so we're not at risk of overlapping, and then the field list again. So this time we just want the average of our wager. So we can go ahead and remove both those fields, drag down the wager, value field setting, average, and then we can click this value field settings, number format. We can make that so it has 2 decimals. We can do dollar separator if we want. So $2.67 is our average wager. And let's bring the dollar sign in there too. So let's do number formatting. Let's do accounting. That'll get that symbol in there. And we could just do 1 decimal. So $2.70. So we have that. And actually the accounting kind of throws that dollar sign a little bit farther out. Let's do currency. So it's next to the numbers. That looks better. Okay. So then for this, we're not going to do a pivot chart. We're just going to do a text box. So go ahead and select your donut, and then we'll go insert shape, and then let's do a circle. Oops, grab the wrong one there. Go insert shapes. Let's grab this flowchart section, and then just make it similar size to the inner part of your donut. And since we selected the donut before we did the insert the shape, you can see it's already grouped with it. We don't have to do a separate group by. So that's just a nice thing to know. And then we will reference Excel. And we know that from our previous video that we need to reference, we have to trick Excel to not think that we're looking at a pivot table. So we'll reference G5 and then just change that G5 to G3. We get our cell we want, lock that in, but it's not going to, Excel doesn't think we're referencing a pivot chart because it's not going to like that. So there's our 2.7. And then we can format this. Let's do no fill. Let's center it. Let's bold it and blow it up in size. And then let's change the text to something like that. So there's our average bet. We can actually get rid of that. I don't even want a shape outline. Just make it seem like it's just part of the donut chart. So there's our average bet size. Okay. Let's actually increase this a little bit. Okay. So that's first part of it. And the formatting, you can play around with it, whatever you want, but we have built out this chart now. So let's just knock out these profit by sportsbook, profit by odds, and profit by sport charts. I think they're all going to be built the same. Pretty simple, but I think definitely pretty important to have in the dashboard. So we'll go ahead and just grab our last pivot table, copy it over a couple columns. So for here, we're going to want our sports books on a row, and then we want to do our net dollar amount to get our profit. And then let's go ahead and value field setting. Let's number format that to be, we just do a number. Let's show red if it's negative. Do 2 decimals, and we'll separate it by comma there. So there's our sports books, and then how much we've made on each sports book. And then we'll do the same thing. We'll go insert, and then we'll go to our pivot chart, and this time we're going to want a bar graph. So we'll do the first one. clustered bar, click OK, and then we'll do our Control X again, bring it over to our dashboard, Control V to copy it in, and then we'll do the same thing. We'll hide all the filled buttons on the chart, and then get it so you highlight these lines, delete them. I never think they look good, and we can get rid of this legend. It's pretty apparent what we're showcasing here. And then we can title it Profit by Sportsbook, just so it's explicit what we're showcasing. Go ahead and select some of the bars, do Control 1 to bring up our format data series. So gap width, you can see there's a pretty big gap between each one of the sports books. Let's knock that down. Let's see what 100% looks like. That looks a little bit better. Let's even maybe make it tighter than that, 75. Okay, and then go to the fill option. So this is in order to make it look good for if it's positive or negative. Let's invert if negative, and we'll vary those colors. So if it's positive, we can do our green guy, and then if it's negative, we can bring in a red color. I think that just makes it look better. And so you can see with the DraftKings and Bet Rivers, since they're negative, the red is overlapping our titles there. And so in order to work around that, we'll go to axis options and then labels, and then we'll do label next to axis. Go ahead and do low, and you can see that puts a nice space between the chart area and then our labels. Go ahead and select those, bold them. I think that makes it stand out. Bold our title, and then select the chart area again, and then we can go to the fill in line, and then we'll again like to round those corners. We can make our outline the dark blue, increase the width to 1.5, and then let's add that fill color we did with the other one too, solid fill and like a light gray. So looks very consistent to our first pivot chart, visually appealing in my opinion, and just a good looking pivot chart. So then that is the second one. Let's go ahead and do the same thing. Copy this over a couple columns. And then here we are going to look at our different profits by odds. So for here, we want to look at our odds. So we'll get rid of the sportsbook, drag that up, and then we'll drag down our odds. And then we'll do our sum of net dollars. So you can see it brings in all the different odd values that we've placed wagers on and how much money we've made on that. So that's a lot of different lines. And in order to make that a little bit more digestible and read a little bit better, we're going to go up to our data, select the area here, and we'll go to pivot table analyze, and we're going to go to group selection. So it's going to bring up this grouping dialog box and starting at, ending at, and then the increments amount. And depending on what your typical odds are on your bets, you can change this, but I'm going to go let's go to minus 250, and then the max value, let's say, is a 500 odd or longer bucket, and then let's do increments of 125. So much more condensed. You can see I have a greater than 500, 375 to 500, 250 to 375, and so forth. So that much better looking grouping, and you can see that when we're betting on heavy favorites, we're actually in the red, but if we're betting on underdogs, we're positive. So just that's what you're trying to get, is where your bet's most profitable as far as the odds go. So I definitely think this is a pretty critical pivot chart to have, and so we'll do the same thing we've done with the previous one. We'll do insert, do our pivot chart. We're going to do that clustered bar, click OK, and then do Control X, then Control V to paste it in. So we're going to right click, hide all filled buttons, move these grid lines. We'll select one of our bars, do Control 1. We'll decrease that gap width to 75%. go over to our fill in line, invert if negative. We'll change our colors. It's the same mechanics as we did before. And then we will, that all looks good. Let's do some bolding here just to make that stand out. Let's get rid of this legend. Like that, the title. We can call this profit by odds. Okay. Then we'll select our odds amount, and then we can go over to our axis options, go down to our labels again. And this is where we're going to do that low to get them to not overlap with the values. So that all looks consistent. And then we can just select our chart area again, do the fill in line. We'll do the solid fill. Let's do our light gray. We want to round those corners again, bump it up to 1.5 and the dark blue. So once you get the hang of one of these, they become pretty easy. And something I did forget on the previous one is let's do some data labels too. So if you get this little plus, you can do data labels. Let's do outside in. Then let's go ahead and select those and bold them. So then we have data labels to go with this so we know how much the dollar corresponds with this. I mean, we have the legend at the bottom, the axes values, and you can get rid of that if you prefer. I'd say it's whatever looks better to you. But if you have the data labels, you don't really need the axis at the bottom. Same thing here, data labels. We'll go outside in there. You can select them. You can format them as well. It's really up to you, whatever you think looks good. So that's our first two. And then the next one would be if you want to do a profit by sport or a win percent by odds. I'm going to pull back up the master here just so you can see. So I'm not going to walk through all these because I think you've got enough to run with. If you wanted to create a profit by sport one, it's the same mechanics, or a win percent by odds, or wager type ROI. It's all of this is going to be the exact same type of process. So the next thing would be if we wanted to have this line chart that has our monthly profit by month. So let's go ahead and do that one because that's a little bit more unique. And so for that one, we can go ahead and go back to our pivot charts tab, scroll over a little bit. We'll copy this last one, a couple columns over. So here, bring up our filled list, and we're going to go ahead and get rid of the odds. And let's do date. Okay, and then it's going to bring in the sum of net amount. We've already got that in there. That's what we want. And so since we have our dates formatted in our data table, the bet tracker, Excel's going to go ahead and automatically group those. And so we want to get rid of the year and the quarter. We want to keep the months, and then we can get rid of the date. So there we go. We have our Jan, February, March, April through December, and then how much we've made on each one of those. So let's go ahead and do an insert. And then we will do a pivot chart. And then here we're going to do a line, and let's do the line with markers. I like the look of with having the markers. I think it just makes the data points stand out better. Do a cut and paste again. You can stretch that out a little bit. And then it's going to be really the same formatting that we've been doing. You can keep the legend or not. Get rid of it. Get rid of our grid lines. We can change this to monthly profit. Okay, we can bold the months, get rid of that, and then we can select our area. We can do data labels. Let's do above. I think that looks better. Bold those, and then again, we'll select our chart area. We'll do our rounded corners. Bump this up to 1.5, do the dark blue, do a solid fill, and let's do that light gray. All right, so there's several different charts, and now if we go over here to our slicers, we can see that they are all, since we copied from a previous pivot, we are live. All these are working and interactive with each other. And we have a sports betting dashboard that is going to allow us to really analyze our sports betting and see where we're making money, where we're not, and then where the places where we're not. Is it just a coincidence? Is it just low sample size, or is it truly just part of our betting methodology that maybe has some holes in it? So I'm gonna pull back over the finished product. I did a little bit more formatting on this, but really the mechanisms and everything is all there for you to be able to create whatever dashboard makes sense for you, whatever metrics you want to be able to track and analyze. So I hope you found this helpful. Please consider liking and subscribing. And I will say I do have this exact bet tracker here that you're looking at on the screen available for purchase on my Etsy. The link's in the description. Otherwise, thank you for watching and God bless.